Diversity Leadership Center session today on leading with authenticity and trust. I'm so excited that each of you have joined us this morning. We have with us Brian Black and some representatives from Hexion that will be presenting on this topic. And I must say, first of all, we acknowledge some of our advisory board members that are present. Wanted to thank Karen Fowler, our advisory board member, and who is currently serving as executive vice president and business innovations in Inthetech. She was the one who introduced us to Hexion and helped to foster a financial and expertise relationship. So, Karen, thank you so very much for what you've done with introducing me to Brian. Dr. Brian Alexander is the Global Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Hexion. He plays a key role in building global, diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment and implementing policies, procedures, and systems that foster the same. Brian has held several positions, some of which include leading roles with Thermo Fisher Scientific, and he's also held several positions with National Urban League System, including the Urban League of Kansas, where he was the president and chief executive officer. In this community and others, Brian has served on numerous committees and boards and currently serves as co-chair of the Ohio Diversity Council Education Committee and a member of Psi Pi Phi Fraternity, Lambda Boule, and Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. Brian comes to us with a doctorate in management and organizational leadership from the University of Phoenix. I'm excited to call Brian a friend as well. And when we spoke with him about presenting here in this forum, he was excited and he brought with him some colleagues from Hexion. I'm going to allow Brian to introduce his colleagues and then go further into their presentation. If you have questions today, please put it in the chat and we will address them as well. Let me give a shout out to Alex Shoemate. Thank you, Mr. Shoemate, for coming and attending our sessions. Brian, it's in your hands.
I've only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it, forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give an account if I abuse it, just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it, by Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. Good morning, everyone. We are very excited to be with you along with my colleagues here at Hexion that you will meet a little later in our presentation. Thank you, Dr. Boyne. Thank you, Franklin, for having us. And let's begin our show today. So first of all, we all have the capacity to inspire, empower others to achieve. Next slide. But we must be willing to devote ourselves to our personal growth and our development as leaders. Next slide. As leaders, our number one priority is to help our colleagues, our associates, our employees to perform at their best. And here we go, to get them to believe in what is possible, our vision, our mission of our organizations, what is possible. Next slide. So for us at Hexion, first of all, we are here for all, period. For all, period. Recognizes and amplifies the voices, the faces, and experiences, and the backgrounds of our people. Next slide. So for us at Hexion, it's all about building and protecting the future using innovative science each and every day. Next slide. So our CEO, I love our CEO. He's dynamic, and he has this phrase that diversity equals creativity, that we cannot have the innovation, the unique perspectives of ideas drives and fuels innovation. So from Michael Leffenfeld, our president CEO's perspective, it is a critical capability that we have diversity because through that broader spectrum of ideas and perspectives, we create the innovations that will lead us to where we want to go, and that is achieving our mission and vision of Hexion. Next slide, please. So when we think about this whole notion, high performing teams by nature are diverse. Next slide, please. And so one of the things to think about is that teams, just putting teams together on their own is not is a piece of it. But in order to have that high performing culture, we must have those different perspectives and ideas and backgrounds that becomes the engine for that fuel for that innovation that we look for in our organizations. Next slide, please. So when we think about leadership, I like to think about leadership in this notion of the late Donald McGannon. Leadership is not about the role that we have in an organization, but rather it is about the action that we choose to take. Next slide, please. So the best leaders are those who lead their teams to take in information, distill it, analyze it, and then use it to do something, to take action. Next slide. So here's our challenge. Here's the challenge. Here's the challenge for today. We're going to share a lot of information, but the challenge today is to do something with the information that we share to enhance the customer experience, whoever your customer is, the employee experience. But most importantly, I think, is how do we increase the performance of our teams? Let us begin. Next slide. The most effective leaders, we believe, build bridges between knowledge and action, and they are quick, and they act quickly when it's required. They understand that non-action can actually place an organization at risk. They act authentically. They generate trust because of their willingness to act. They are not limited by fear of making a mistake, because sometimes we're going to make a mistake. These leaders are not defined by their position. They may not have official, what I call authority, but they lead. Next slide. Their leadership is marked by purpose, mission, passion to improve things and to make things better. Next slide. Their style is one of candor. They are willing to see the issues, and they see issues by allowing everyone to contribute and to give their thoughts about it. They they do this and they seek collaborative solutions. They see the value. Here we go. They see value in producing results, not activities, but results. They do not settle. These leaders garner respect of their colleagues, their employees, because they bring with them high integrity and courage. Next slide. These leaders do the right thing when it matters the most. They do the right things when it matters the most. They do the right things when no one is looking. They do the right things in challenging times. They do the right things when it matters the most. Next slide. So, how do we lead more authentically? I'm glad you asked. Let's move on into that. People who trust leaders who are authentic and genuine. People trust authentic leaders. Next slide. Authentic leaders demonstrate passion for their purpose. They practice their values consistently. They lead with their hearts as well as their heads. They establish long term and meaningful relationships. Relationships. I'm going to come back to that. They are very intentional about creating meaningful relationships, which lead to trust. As we know, trust is the foundation of all relationships. Our good friend Stephen Covey taught us. And they have the self-discipline that gets results. So everybody wants to be on a winning team, right? Everybody wants to be number one. We don't get up in the morning to be number 24. I want to be number 30 today. No, we get up to be number one, the best of the best of our in our industry. They are very intentional. Here we go. They are very intentional in diversifying their networks and getting to know all team members. All team members. They are very intentional to getting to know all of their team members, not just the ones specifically in their organizations, but across the organization. And here's my favorite: they have a great sense of humor. All right, next slide, please. Ultimately, authentic leaders know who they are. Authentic leaders realize that self-awareness only comes comes from willing to listen to feedback. The challenge is to understand ourselves well enough to discover where we can use our leadership gifts. Authentic leaders also possess something that we call inclusive leadership. So why are inclusive leaders good for the or another good question? Let me dive into inclusive leadership a little bit. Next slide. I say as inclusive leadership is an action that requires intentionality. So now if we did a survey on this call right now and asked how many people are inclusive leader, everybody gonna say yes, of course I'm an inclusive leader. But my question is, are you intentional about that? Are you actually planning strategy around how am I inclusive, particularly in this global world of Zoom meetings and team meetings? How intentional are we to ensure that we're being inclusive in our leadership? Inclusive leaders understand that status quo only works for certain identified groups and that people are having radically different lived experiences in society and in the workplace. Next slide. My good friend Jennifer Brown denotes in the Inclusive Leader Continuum in her most recent book these four stages, and I really like these four stages that Jennifer gives. The idea is that this is a continuum, and it's an ongoing reevaluation, and there are four stages in her model. There's the unaware, and not, and we're depending on the situation. We're at different places in the model. The unaware people think that diversity is just a compliance related. It's simply and they simply tolerate it. It's someone else's job. They think it's okay, but maybe it's not my job. The awareness stage is, hey, I'm aware that I have a role to play and I need to educate myself about this notion. Active people, they've shifted their priorities and are finding their voice in this, and they begin to take meaningful action to support others. Or you could potentially be at the advocate level where you're proactively, consistently looking at how can I actually address biases that might exist in the systems that operate our organizations. Do our systems create equitable opportunities for all of our employees? And so, again, there's no right or wrong here. It's just basically a continuum of where you are. What Jennifer provides is this online assessment. It's free, and I would encourage you to do it. And it'll give you sort of a baseline where you are, and not necessarily focusing on where you land, but the questions in the assessments will definitely bring some insights to you. So I encourage you to do that. Next slide, please. Things may change due to the external environment or the country that which you live in. Inclusive leadership is a journey and it's not a destination. So keep that in mind. Inclusiveness is not just a nice to have in teams, but it's something that actually does drive some research behind it. And so let's look at the next slide of what Gardner says about this whole idea. Um, so teams, according to Gardner, teams with inclusive leaders are 17% more likely to report that they are high performing. That's a good thing. 20% more likely to say that they make high quality decisions, and 29% more likely to report that they actually work collaboratively. And so there is science behind this. And at Hexion, we are making progress in this area. But there's always more to do. At Hexion, we rely on diverse and multidisciplinary teams of our associates that combine their collective capabilities and our unique technologies to enable our customers to protect the future using innovative science today. We would not be able to innovate and advance, we believe, without this proliferation of diversity that we have. For us, diversity is the fabric that is woven through all the things that we do. And again, it's for all, period, is the way we like to talk about this at Hexion. This really matters because the more people feel included, the more they will speak up, and they'll go the extra mile, and they'll collaborate, all of which ultimately lifts the organization's performance. It provides that extra lift that we need to exceed expectations. Next quote. So, what are we talking about? It's really about that whole sense of belonging, that sense of connectivity to our teams and to our organizations. When that happens, we get that lift. And in the words of Dr. Maya Angelou, it's all about how you make people feel. That's what this whole authenticity, inclusive leadership is about. Is how do we make people feel? Do people feel connected to each other? Do they feel connected to the organization? I suggest to you, when I feel as though I am a part of this community, then I'm all in. I'm all in, and I can do my best work. So next slide. So what specific actions can we take to be more inclusive? Dang, y'all keep coming up with good questions. Awesome. So let's jump into some inclusive leadership traits that we can employ. Here we go. Next slide. So first of all, visible commitment within your organization. Our inclusive leaders, they are articulate, authentic, and they are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they can articulate their own view of that. They challenge the status quo, hold others accountable, and make DE&I a personal commitment. But here we go. They're very intentional. They're very intentional in their own way. They are humble. They have they are modest about their capabilities. They're willing to admit mistakes, and they create. Here we go. I really like this. They create the space for others to contribute. They're aware of their biases. They show awareness of their own personal blind spots as well as biases in the system. Biases in the system. And I want to really challenge us all there. It's not just individual, but how are you looking at all the systems that run your organization, whether it's succession, whether it's recruitment, whether it's hiring, whether it's strategic planning, whether it's workforce planning, your annual operating plan, whatever the system that runs your business, your supplier diversity program, looking to see is there anything in our systems preventing equitable opportunity. Here's another thing that I really like. They're curious. They're curious about others. They demonstrate an open mindset and a deep sense of curiosity about others. They listen. They listen without judgment, and they seek with empathy to understand others around them. So the empathy is very important. They work to build their cultural intelligence. They are attentive to others' cultures and they adapt as required. And finally, they really focus on effective collaboration. They empower others. They pay attention to diversity of thinking, perspectives, and ideas. And here we go. They also pay attention to ensuring that there is psychological safety for others to contribute, and they focus on the team cohesion. And that psychological safety is so important. And it may look different for different associates within your organization based on location, based on country. For us at Hexion, we are a global a company. And so as we operate far east, as we operate in Brazil, the Netherlands, Australia, we are very cognizant of where we are around the globe, and we're very sensitive to the cultural relevances in those particular areas so that we can create that psychological safety and that space for all, period, for all of our associates to have that great sense of belonging and that sense of connectivity to the team. So those are our characteristics. And so we covered a lot of things during this session. Next slide, please. So where do we begin with all of this? And I've got a few thoughts on where we might begin or continue. Next slide, please. Based on what we've learned today, here is a rubric that you could consider. And this is really about looking at yourself individually. How can I look at this as a team? And again, that system approach. And this is an activity that you would do with your leadership team. And so let me give some examples of what I mean on the next slide. So here are some things that you might consider, and this is not a exhaustive list, but the thing to note with this activity, it's going to require every humility, and it's going to require transparency, particularly as leaders. The more transparent we are, the more trust we build with our teams. And so here are some examples of things that you might consider. Next slide, please. So you might just want to pick one. You may say, as an individual, I'm going to challenge myself to be more open to new and different perspectives. And that may seem very obvious, but do we actually practice? Because here's going to be the kicker. You're going to share this as a team. Everyone's going to kind of identify self. And then what will we do as a team? You might say, we're going to always ask who else needs to be in the room to understand the full situation. If we're making decisions, we're not just going to, for us at Hexion, we're not just going to make decisions in a vacuum in Columbus. We know we have colleagues all across the nation. We have colleagues in Brazil. We have colleagues in the Netherlands. We have colleagues in Australia. We have colleagues in Malaysia. We're going to make sure that who else needs to be in the room to make this decision. And then from a system standpoint, you might say, hey, we're going to commit to engage in those D&I conversations and those discussions. And we're going to commit to ensuring that all of our associates feel comfortable of participating in business resource groups. That could be potentially something that you choose. Now, here's how this works. Once you have this conversation, you put this on your agenda, and I would suggest you want to bring it up at least monthly in your normal agenda, because the idea about all of this is this is not something that you want to think about at some point in time. How does it become part of your standard work? How do we build this into our standard work that it just becomes this is what we do? And so we hold each other accountable. And so then you say to the team, hey, now that we've made our declarations, we're going to hold each other accountable. And someone's going to say, hey, it's time for us to pull this up. And I'm privileged to be on a team with amazing colleagues. Someone would say, hey, who else needs to be in the room? That kind of thing. So this is something, a model that you might consider using to advance this whole notion of leading with authenticity and trust. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day, it's all about the team, right? And we've got to realize that in order to win, you've got to get the whole team involved. And that is what this is about. This is why this is so important. This is why leadership, why Franklin has a leadership center, why leadership is so important, because it has so many ramifications on the team. And so I always challenge leaders that if you're not getting the performance that you want out of your teams, really step back and think about, how are we leading the team? How are we creating the space for others to lead as well? Remember, we define leadership not as a position, but an action. And so everyone can take leadership no matter what seat that they're in. And so it's all about winning the championship. I love this quote by my friend Michael Jordan. It's not about the individual accolades. And he knew he couldn't win the championship back in the day without the team. And so we can't, at the end of the day, it's not about this function or that department. It's about the mission and the. All right. Okay. I think I just came back. Can you all see me, hear me? All right. All right. All right. I did try to trick me up there. All right. Let's get the presentation back up. And as the presentation's coming back up, let me say one last thing. So when we think about this whole idea of that we've shared today, remember that each and every day we are leading by example, whether positive or negative. Uh, we're influencing everyone around us, and people are watching us, particularly if you have an official position of authority. So keep that in mind. So at this point, I am very happy to turn the presentation over to my good friend Jamie Cook, our Global Learning and Development Manager. Let me just make sure we had a technical difficulty there. Make sure that everyone got back in. And okay, yep, everybody's there. So I think we're good. Um, so let me pass it over to Jamie, and Jamie is going to introduce our panel today and take us through that. So over to you, Jamie.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to lead a conversation with two of our executive leaders here at Hexion. We have Sheila Rutt with us, who is our Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer, and she also serves as the executive sponsor of our Pride at BRG, or our Pride at Hexion BRG. And we have Sandy Kowaleski, who's our Chief Operations Officer and the executive sponsor of our Global DE&I Ops core team. So thank you both for being here. I will be watching the chat if anyone has questions for these two, but I'll kick us off with a general question about your leadership journey. So would love to hear from you, Sandy and Sheila. Just give us a brief introduction of who you are and what your leadership journey has been that has brought you here today. Let's go ahead and start with Sheila.
All right. Thanks, Jamie. And hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. I'm excited to share a little bit about my leadership perspectives and journey with you. As Jamie said, my name is Sheila Rutt, and I currently serve as the Chief Human Resources Officer here at Hexion. I've always been fascinated with behavior in the workplace, and I actually studied it in college, pursuing and eventually getting a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. So my journey in the field of HR actually began with some exposure during graduate school, doing consulting work for HR teams, my dissertation within a company, and then right out of grad school, where I landed my first real HR role, starting as a recruiter in an automotive manufacturing company. I'm very passionate about people, and I knew early on that I really wanted to make a difference in their lives through the work that I do. So when I started in this first manufacturing role out of HR or in HR out of grad school, I quickly learned that there's a lot you can't read in a book. And so I learned all the ropes of recruitment, of course, as that being my first role, and then also a lot about employee relations and the powerful impact of work satisfaction and engagement, or work dissatisfaction and disengagement, which really laid the foundation for my overall approach and career path in HR. And then over the years, I continued to grow in my roles, eventually leading HR for that manufacturing company. And then I accepted a position for a company in Northeast Ohio called Diebold Nixdorf. I started there as a director of organizational development because they really wanted to do some significant international acquisitions to expand from a US only company. And I was then coming in to support intentional and successful integration of those acquisitions. And so within the first 6 months of my tenure, I was promoted. I refer to it as really being catapulted into increasing levels of responsibility, ultimately leading the global HR operations. And then in 2005, was appointed to become the CHRO of that company, where I served as CHRO until 2017. And so it was just an absolutely amazing journey, taking that company from a US only business of $500 million in revenue to, when I left, a $5 billion revenue company in over 80 countries around the globe. So being a part of that build was just absolutely a gift in my career and an amazing experience. Made a lot of mistakes, by the way, that of course you learn from in your own leadership. But Chicago called me away, and it was a Fortune 500 company. I took that CHRO role, and then I moved into private equity, which is where I've been since, and absolutely love PE, which is where I'm at Hexion today. And as I've gone through my career, I've really realized the strategic importance of my work in driving business outcomes and success. I developed a deep understanding of business operations, even going back to school at night to get my MBA, to make sure that I understand how to read a balance sheet and all of the different elements of business as it related to my own role in HR. And I love to connect the dots. I love to connect the dots in the critical role that HR plays to align really all of the human capital strategies to unlock business value. And so all of that to say that I love to shape the direction and prioritization of HR initiatives to really drive positive change for people who work in companies that I work for, to support their performance individually and then the company's performance overall. I do have a very strong dedication, perseverance, and commitment to excellence. I think, as we think about and reflect on our own leadership, crucial to my own success and success, I think, in any career, is working very hard to build strong relationships with the people I work with. And it's also very important to me to demonstrate a track record of delivering results and outcomes. And so now I have the amazing privilege of leading a super talented team of HR professionals here at Hexion. And we're absolutely cranking here to contribute to enhancing the employee work experience. We're contributing to realizing our strategic vision and aspirations, and just having an amazing and powerful impact on Hexion's overall success and future. So really excited to be here today. And that's a little about me.
Thank you, Sheila. Sandy, what about you and your leadership journey?
So first I want to apologize because I'm actually at one of our Hexion sites. And so I've had a hard hat on all day and glasses. So I tried to poof my hair. I don't think it worked very well. And I may have raccoon eyes from the glasses I'm wearing, but that is my authenticity that I'm bringing to you all today. And so I've had a blessed career. And similar to Sheila, I don't want to talk about the specific roles, but kind of the purpose of the roles I took and what they kind of added to my career path. So in high school, I was definitely a little nerdy because I love math and science. And so, looking at the path I wanted to take, I did become an engineer. So I'm a chemical engineer by degree. And what I always found in most degrees, but especially technical degrees, they teach you how to solve problems and find solutions and engage the diversity of people to solve the problems. And I think that's some of the biggest gift that I saw starting out in my career was just that piece. It wasn't so much about the specific education, but companies need problem solvers, and being able to engage teams to do that was most important. Coming out of college, though, I didn't want to start right out in operations and being a plant or being in a lab and R&D. I wanted to be with the customers because I wanted to know what it took, that customer voice, what it took for them to really hire you and want your product, and what it felt like when they didn't want your product and they kicked you out. And so that was very humbling in regards to being able to go there and see how long it takes to really get trials into plants and the data you had to bring, and how long it took to really get that acquisition of a sale, and then how quickly it could go away if things didn't go right and you lost the trust. And I'd done that for a little bit, and then I was finally ready to move into operations. So back in the days when I was in customer facing roles, I was wearing pinstripe suits with heels, running around in paper mills, running up stairs with grading. So I always made sure I was the last one up the stairs because I had a skirt on. And then I came back to my plant and I said, you know what, I'm ready to turn in these heels for steel-toed boots. And they gave me the opportunity, and I just loved it. I absolutely loved then challenging my skill set to be in a plant, with folks that came every day with such pride in what they did, and just expanding my process knowledge, my project management skills, but most importantly, my influencing skills. Like, how do you get somebody to do something different or to see something a different way? That's absolutely influencing skills. And that was just a wonderful opportunity for me to learn that. From there, in my career, I was like, okay, now I want to challenge myself to become a manager. I want to be able to, lead people. And I've always been a student of leadership and change and transformation. So, fortunately, my company gave me that first opportunity, and it was a wonderful setting. It was actually a small plant that was part of a larger union facility, but this plant was non-union and a high-performing work team. I mean, just amazing to be able to work with them and serve them in an important way. And we did fabulous things together as a team. And then I was ready for something bigger, that next step of complexity and scale. And they actually, my company gave me the large plant. And that was wonderful as well, because it was a union facility. But what I learned is people are people. It doesn't matter if they're union or non-union. Everybody drives in every day, wants to do a fantastic job, and it's up to leaders to engage them, to allow them to do that effectively, to give them a voice, to value what they do. Because of my customer facing role that I had early in my career, I was then able to actually run a business. So I ran a full P&L, had a full business, ran all the functions, and actually the business I was given wasn't making money. So our team had the exciting challenge to turn the business around and make the margins we needed to make, and actually change our business model. That was wonderful. From there, I moved into a role that gave me all of supply chain. So I had, procurement, quality, customer service, all the operations. I mean, everything you'd have outside of, sales and the HR kind of functions at that time. And again, checked another box in regards to leading diverse teams, driving tremendous change in an organization, and driving transformation. From there, the organization needed a significant amount of change. In the chemical industry, there's the dynamics of raw material pricing and consolidation of marketplaces and stuff like that. So you always need to be reinventing yourself, challenging yourself, looking for new ways to do things. And so the CEO asked me to lead a major transformation in the organization, which I stepped up to do. And I was blessed to get the 17 high potential young leaders in the company to work with me on that transformation. And I took that so seriously in regards to not just teaching them the tools of how to drive change, but teaching them how to be great leaders. And I was honored to be in that role to help them do that. And then after that path, it was time to take those skills, which I was blessed to have had the opportunity to learn through good leaders around me, and then continue to add complexity to it, take it to a global level, 57 plants reporting to me across the world, and then take it to other businesses that had different cultures and different needs. And so, again, I've had a blessed career. I'm definitely humbled by what I've been able to see and do, and the great people that have allowed me to support them and serve them. And so some of the things I've taken away through that journey is leaders are readers. Leaders are continual learners, because you never know enough. The world is evolving, and you have to be learning, and you have to, to what Brian said, you have to be learning from diverse voices. I would never trust one source or one book, because I'd say it may be biased. It may not give me the broad perspective. And so I was always hungry to have multiple voices coming at me. And I think it's also important that leaders are reflective, because I think that being reflective on what's happening and what you brought and what may not have gone well is what allows you to find your authentic self. And being here in this plant today in Fayetteville, North Carolina, I smiled to myself, because I am the same Sandy that I was as that young engineer starting my career as I am being in this plant with my people here today. I'm so honored by the work they do, the pride they bring to it, the care that they have to take care of each other, and just to be in awe, to learn from them, and allow me the opportunity to serve them in this role. So that's my journey, and it's been fabulous.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It's fun to hear from both of you because you have such different backgrounds, but similar themes that you've picked up along the way of great leadership and caring about the people and being focused on business outcome and how you can do both of those things at the same time. So thanks for sharing that. I want to come back to you, Sheila, about we had last week our global HR team came to Columbus. So all of our HR partners were in town. And I just wanted to hear from you all. Why was that important to you? Why was that important that we were all in the same space getting to work together? Why did we prioritize that for a week?
Sure. It was absolutely fabulous, and I think, bringing our global HR team together for a week in person, in my view, was absolutely essential for a lot of reasons. It builds relationships first and foremost, and fosters collaboration, I think, in a deeper way. And then it also supported us to really align our efforts towards shared goals. And, technology is awesome, right? Because it's really post-COVID, it's really the way that we communicate across time zones and boundaries and borders. And it does allow beautiful connection virtually, but there is such immense value in face-to-face interactions that just can't be replicated online. And so for me, it was really about team relationships, which are so foundational for collaboration. They enable us to work together more effectively and seamlessly. They provide, when we're face to face, those real time opportunities for problem solving and discussions and brainstorming. And so it was absolutely beautiful from my perspective to just find yourself in, even during breaks, informal conversations about shared challenges and initiatives, and then more structured to really share what those initiatives are and should be, to make sure everyone's on the same page and aligned. And so that time that we spent to get to know each other on a deeper level really does strengthen trust. And I think it also boosts morale, engagement, fosters a sense of real teamwork and camaraderie. And I think all of that leads to higher performing teams overall. I think the most powerful part of last week for me was listening to everyone share what they had accomplished in the first quarter. And so we've got very robust, specific scorecards, as you know. And it was great to hear everybody talk about what they delivered, and then what they plan to deliver in the second quarter. And so sharing success and celebrating that as a team and acknowledging that as a team, I think, is also really powerful, especially when you're in the same space. I think that's something that, again, we should never lose, even though we have a lot of capabilities with technology to be virtual.
Awesome. Thank you. And can confirm all of those things are true. Really fun to be able to celebrate with the whole team and to hear what's coming up. So time well spent for sure. Sandy, you mentioned a couple times already that you are visiting a couple of our plants this week. And I'd love to hear from you, why is that important? I know you've been excited for this trip. Why is it important for you to get in there and wear the hard hat and the glasses and be on the shop floor with our operators?
So the most important part of any company is the people. Our competition can, work really hard to come up with products that can compete with us, or, put their plants in certain locations that can compete with us. But our people and our culture, if we're great at that, they can't mimic that. And that only comes by being, an engaged team that's motivated, and that I agree that diversity leads to creativity, to drive improvement and deliver the great products and services. And so that doesn't happen by Zoom. And that doesn't happen by, emails. Companies have a lot of metrics. We have a lot of metrics, right? And so when you look at metrics around safety and delivery and quality and all these things, and you're like, well, what does it feel like to have, a margin of 30%? Who can relate to that, right? You know that's a target and you feel good that you hit it, but what does it really feel like to the individual? And that's the connection that has to happen through leadership. To let people, know what's important and what that looks like and what that means to them and the value of that. And the only way to start making that connection, and I've always believed that, is people need to first know you care. And I love that quote that Brian shared. It's been probably one of my top 5 quotes in my entire career in regards to, people may forget what you said, may forget what you did, but they're not going to forget how you made them feel. I want to live that. So I always challenge myself to that in regards to my time with my people. Do they feel that they matter, that I value what they've done, that their voice is respected, that I listen, that I am here to serve, that I want to know the reality of what they live with every day? When I look at, because when you're in operations, safety is such a big thing. I mean, you need to make sure people go home the same way they came, and to continually be, taking care of people and creating a culture where people are truly each other's keepers. And we talked about that this morning. So to give you an example of that, I couldn't deliver that through an email, but being in the safety meeting this morning, I'm like, we're all human. We come in every day and nobody knows what happened to us last night that may have been challenging, or even this morning that may have been challenging. But if we're in a good environment and we can ask each other, how's your mindset today? And somebody can trustingly say, you know what, I had a really bad morning. And everybody that knows that, they don't need to share what it was, but everybody then knows they may be a little distracted today. They may not be on their top game. And we're going to make sure that person's safe today. That happens through authentic leadership, and everyone out there is a leader. It's not just me, and it's inspiring that, and that only happens being with people, letting them feel that, and that's why it's so important for me to be with my people, because it doesn't come through a Zoom the same way as it comes through climbing around on equipment and truly, sincerely, and empathetically valuing what they do every day.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I haven't seen any questions come in the chat, so I'm going to throw one more out there for you both to wrap up this panel conversation. And it's about reflection, like Sandy mentioned. If you could, look back when you were early in your career in those early positions that you shared with us today, what would you tell yourself about leadership that you know today that you didn't know then that might accelerate your knowledge?
Yeah. So for me, as I reflect on my journey, I think there's 2 things that come immediately to mind. And Sandy touched on authenticity, but that would be the first for me, is to really embrace authenticity. I mean, we live in a world where there's just a ton of pressure to conform to certain expectations or standards. And I would tell my younger self that the most impactful leaders are really those who stay true to themselves. And if you look around, you'll see that. And it's not about being perfect. It's about being genuine. It's about being transparent, vulnerable, and leading with integrity, empathy, and humility, and really leading to serve. And that should be first. And that will serve you in your leadership journey. And then the second for me is to embrace failure as a stepping stone to success. And in any leadership, let's face it, in any life journey, you're going to fail. And in my case, I failed often. And I still tell myself this today, right? But each failure that we make is truly an opportunity to grow. And ultimately, we become stronger and more resilient as we overcome failures and learn from our mistakes. So I would tell my younger self, and I tell my current self, to always reframe failure when it happens, and let it really just fuel my growth and my determination to always strive to be better.
Great. Thank you. Sandy, what about you?
You have 2 quick ones as well. I say I'm the same Sandy I was early in my career as I am now, except for one thing that I want to share, because this was an authentic shift for me. Going in engineering, there weren't very many females early in engineering. I mean, I was in a lot of classes where I was the only girl. I was in a lot of roles where I was the only female on the management team, in the plant, running around with my heels and my skirt. And so what I found myself doing early in my career is I hid the female side of me. I wore, black suits, blue suits, dark clothes, nothing pink around me. And it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago, I said, you know what? I'm bringing all of me. And if I want a pink purse, I'm going to have a pink purse. And so I made that change. And I feel really good about it. And part of it is society has changed a little bit, but that was important to me because that's diversity. Everybody feels odd at times. Everybody feels like they can't be themselves. And, my little, no pink purse thing was a small piece of that, but it gave me the empathy and the curiosity to what others may be feeling. The other thing is, when you're driven to be successful, and, it goes to Sheila's thing about, failure. You have this perfection drive sometimes. And I could find myself where a meeting didn't go well, I didn't do my best, or I could have done something different. And I beat myself up, like replay it in my mind for days. And I finally reflected and I said, and this is ridiculous, right? You can't change it. So you just got to learn from it quickly and get over it. So my little rule of thumb is I allow myself enough time for the drive home. I got to get over it on however long the drive home is, and then it has to be gone. And that's made a difference in my life as well.
What a good tip. I love that. Thank you so much. Well, Sandy and Sheila, thank you. We are fortunate to be able to learn with and be led by you. And thank you for joining us for this conversation today. And in closing, on behalf of the Hexion team, it's been a pleasure to join Franklin University Leadership Center today. Thank you, Dr. Bowen, for inviting us to share a little bit about our views on leadership. And it's been said multiple times today that leadership is a learning journey that never ends. And so thank you for being here with us today to learn a little bit more, as we always can do. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you to all of you as well. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story with us. And Brian, thank you for sharing and inspiring us to lead with authenticity and trust, right? And especially in this challenging time. I also want to make sure that I thank Jamie for leading the discussion with Sandy and Sheila on this topic. And Sandy and Sheila, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. It's great to hear other people's journey and see what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. And also sharing how you lead so well with authenticity and trust as well. So we really appreciate that. And thank you everyone who attended today. We do have an upcoming event in May on the 21st, and you can find that information at the Leadership Center site, and I can put that in our chat if you would like. Does anyone have any questions, comments, remarks for the closing? Well, but on behalf of Dr. Bowen and myself, we do truly appreciate our relationship with Hexion and all of our Leadership Center attendees. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.